Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers. James and Justin here, and today we have a special interview on the docket. We got Rahul N. Singh, aka the Bearded Mystic. He's got his podcast and he is a fellow YouTuber. I'm excited to get in this one. He seems to focus and delve into like the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads. He's really into Hindu philosophy, Advaita Vedanta, so I'm sure there's going to be lots to learn here. So without further ado, let's get into it. Rahul, thanks so much for being on the show. This is great. I thought, like most interviews we do, I think it's always a good place to begin by letting our audience know a little bit about where you come from. You've got quite a journey that you've been on. You seem to, like, you're into the, like, Hindu philosophy, Advaita Vedanta, and I guess maybe tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to be in this place as the Bearded Mystic.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And, coming onto your channel is an honor for me. So I definitely really honor it and respect it from the bottom of my heart. And my journey has been one where I've been brought up in a spiritual household. So, there was never a time in my life where I say spirituality was away from the house. It was pretty much ingrained into us. The only thing was it created a bit of conflict in the sense of, in the satsang I would go to every Sunday, we talk about a formless God. And then on every weekday, there'd be the school assembly and they're talking about the Christian God, which kind of they personified, so which had some sort of form. And it's just that created a conflict that only came out when I went to university. And I was like, this is super confusing. I do not know what God is. And that's when I say my journey truly began. And with the help of obviously my guru and the scriptures, I went into kind of investigating, well, what first is God? And is it really separate to me? Because if it is, what is the point then? So then I read Osho. That kind of brings in this, weirdly enough, it actually cleaned the slate for me, which was needed, I think. Osho just cleaned the slate. And the good thing about Osho was he talked about every mystic, every sage, every scripture you could think of. And that was something I really liked. And
in a time before the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Even now, in the age of the internet, how many people can talk on so many mystics and masters and teachers? So I read him. Then, obviously he then talks about people like Ramana Maharishi, Sri Ramakrishna, and, you just then go into the kind of rabbit hole of non-duality. And eventually reading all that, I then consolidated, what I could view as God, and that best explanation was Advaita Vedanta with Nirgun Brahman, and that just made sense for me. And then for the last couple of years, only then I've been voicing what I've found. I've been I spent a lot of time just making sure I knew what I truly had faith in before I present anything. And then the channel came about, and what's actually happened is the more episodes I've released, the more I feel like I need to learn more and know more. So it's done wonders for me in the sense of I feel like the more I share, the more I need to know more. And actually, the more you share, you open yourselves to learning and relearning anything as well. So today, I think I would say I'm in a position where I could say, at least intellectually, I am comfortable with knowing what the truth is. Experientially, I want to keep working on it because I don't think there is an end point in that in that space, in the integration.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, that thing about constant, the more you learn, the more you realize there is to learn. And, it just sort of reminds me of, gurus being like, a good guru will never admit he's a guru because, and this aspect of considering everybody your teacher and couple that with the infinite nature of reality.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've been doing lately is trying to rest in uncertain, like, because there's such this knack to like want to mull things over and then wrap it up in a bow and have it settled, and trying to get used to sort of sitting in paradoxes, resting a little bit in not fully answered questions and just sort of waiting for the answer to come, or, not being arrogant about thinking about certainty, essentially,
Yeah. Well, it's humbling, like as a fellow YouTuber, and you're putting yourself out there online, sharing a piece of yourself. It can be intimidating because there's always someone who has who might know a little bit more about some aspect of this than you, and they're always ready there to like throw their thing at you. So like I don't know about you, but I try to approach it at from a place of like I'm coming here to learn, and I can be wrong. Like I tried to like express like I can be wrong. These are just thoughts, and we're just doing it online. We're sharing online here, and I'm willing to grow, and yeah.
It's hilarious because this is the age of information, and there's arguably been probably never better time and resources to gain knowledge, and lo, you still are like, man, I'm an infinite student.
I like
Yeah. You were talking about Advaita Vedanta there. As you know, on our channel, we have people from all types of faith watching our channel here. Maybe to the person who's new to this, what would you say to that person, like as an introduction to like just maybe lay out a basic foundation for them? Where would you start?
Yeah, that's a good one, and a difficult one at the same time, because it's a philosophy, obviously, as we know, that's very rich in terms of its literature and its practices. But essentially, to make it easier to understand, is Advaita Vedanta is that philosophy which tells you, which guides you to experience an inherent oneness, not only within your own self, because obviously we are dual beings essentially. In the beginning we have an ego self, and we have a self that seems to be watching the ego, but also oneness within the whole of existence. And what Advaita Vedanta does, through obviously techniques and through studying and learning, we understand how everything is really just this Nirgun Brahman. This Brahman, which means, I would say, is the vastness of existence, and it's formless, it's imageless, it's causeless, it's partless. You cannot find one end of it, you cannot find the beginning of it. And that, how you get to that, is really the experience of understanding what is our consciousness, what is awareness, and is there any limit to our own awareness? And it's through that self-inquiry we get there. The only thing I will say that can happen as a trap with Advaita Vedanta is that without a proper guru, without a proper teacher, or without being a student, in fact, we can get into this kind of gameplay of, well, once I get to realization, or I have some little awakening experience, oh, there's no need for meditation, there's no need for, there's no awareness, there's no consciousness. And we get into this no game, and what is today called Neo-Advaita.
I was just about to ask you about that, because I keep hearing about this Neo thing. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, so you can get into that, oh, there's no need for a teacher, there's no student here, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, all these people have YouTube channels. I'm like, if there's nothing to teach, nothing to learn, then why do you have a YouTube channel? It's fundamentally flawed. So that's why I think it's essential to have a teacher on that front. And also, I have noticed in the most recently, is that people follow non-duality or Advaita Vedanta, and then they go towards duality again. And again, I think that's because they haven't had a teacher, or they haven't really understood the scripture. When I say a teacher, I don't mean you have to be initiate within the teacher or anything like that, but like actually have someone to learn from. And you don't have to have one, you can have many.
Well, sorry.
Yes.
So I'm sorry. I was just thinking, if part of this is non-duality and the oneness of everything, it's like, are there gurus? Yeah. Well, then there probably should be gurus. You know what I mean? Or like they probably serve some purpose, and I wonder what that is. Why don't you go investigate? And then there's like value in there, and of course, everything makes sense. Yes. Which would be an acceptance role. That would be like the approach of accepting rather than resisting and thinking something ought to be corrected. Seems like.
Yes. And I think what happens is when people, when they go towards from non-duality back to duality, I think duality is more enticing. In fact, it's easier for me to have a God to believe in. It's a lot easier to think everyone is separate to me. Yeah. Because, in fact, from the moment we are born, we are fed this ego. So it just makes sense. So when the non-dual teacher comes along, or the non-dual teachings, it's like, well, it's pretty obvious there's only oneness, but to be honest, it's not what is presenting in my day-to-day life.
Right.
And true Advaita Vedanta is where you see the integration. So you understand that this is all transactional, this reality, this relative reality, but we know the ultimate in the background, and we're comfortable with that. And that little switch that needs to happen, that you could call that grace, you could call that true understanding or an awakening or whatever, but it takes it takes a long time. A lot of people just think by doing one 7-day retreat they're gonna be truly enlightened, and maybe they do have a nice experience, I'm not doubting that, but it's not everlasting. It's not something they can keep building upon and compounding in that sense.
It's like an aspect of just keeping it real, keeping it real. It's like, listen, man, do you or do you not have a job? Do you not, like have a spouse that you argue with sometimes? So with the role of these teachers and these gurus, do you think it is evolving with the rise of technology and the way that the message is presented?
Yes, well, it can be in two ways. One, you can have more of the performance, and I think I've seen some teachers that have, in the rise of the internet and as they've got more followers on YouTube or social media, I've seen them become more performative and more about entertainment, and they know how to get the views and all that stuff. And then you have the other side where you have teachers which are aware of the landscape that's on the internet. They're aware of it, and they utilize it for their advantage. Like they'll ask Q&As, and even though you would not have that in a typical ashram normally, but now you have that. You'll find that they put their classes online. That never happened before. Although they won't be reading probably the comments section, probably a good thing actually for one's mental health. But there is that change that's happened, and I think it's positive. And yes, the messages has changed in the sense of a good teacher, a good guru will know they can evolve, and their views can evolve, and they can be comfortable with that. The ones who I think are going to find things challenging is the more performative ones, and they know who they are, and I don't blame them. I mean, if you have the ability to go on, but I just don't think it's genuine. That's
one that gets me every now and then, is the question of performative versus authentic, because some people will be so soft-spoken, like and my conclusion was like, I want to just be honest, so that if I ever do come on here and I am like that, you can generally, hopefully it's the real deal, otherwise I'm going to talk like how I would naturally talk. But I would say that as you progress on the journey, it isn't crazy to think that you soften up a little bit. Maybe you burn out some of that, culturally ingrained sort of fake masculinity, and start considering things like Kundalini, rising to feminine in you. So it's possible. I could see how it would be possible authentically, but I often question how much is this is performative? How much, are you telling me you talk that same way no matter where you are? But I don't judge it either, because I think that it's a great blessing to a lot of people. I think some people are like, look, I could just talk in this really soft, soothing way. And then the people that are coming to me are sometimes distraught. So I'm like more helpful to them if I'm not shaking them awake and instead talking gently.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I do really believe in and really kind of have a really strong opinion about is in spirituality, the number one rule is honesty. So authenticity. If you can't be honest with yourself, there's no point being spiritual. There's no point being on the journey. It's just a waste of time.
This would be the worst path. I'm gonna choose spirituality to be devilish or something. But it happens, right? Like a bad cult leader or something.
Yeah. It happens, and it's happening today. I mean, there's so many, I would say, bad faith actors are out there. But, honesty has to be the number one policy for any guru, I think, or any teacher, or any content creator. I mean, I consider myself a friend to my community. We're all, and I made it very clear, we're learning from each other. And and there's people in the group like Vinay that we talked about who I learn from. And there shouldn't be that barrier. But also, your home life should be the same. If you're one thing at the temple and then one thing on YouTube and then one thing at home, you're opening the door for schizophrenia, essentially, and having different personas. So
it's like a Marilyn Monroe syndrome or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it can easily happen. And I think it's important to keep your loved ones close who can tell you, you know what, I think you're being fake here, or I think you're not being genuine here. Oh, I think my wife's called me out a few times and she's like, you said this and look at what you're doing now. And it's true. And
wives are the best for that. They'll when the whole world lies to you, you can count on your wife to give you the gears. Even if it's just to show you that, listen, buddy, somebody will still disagree with you. Yeah. Which is, it keeps you humble, and it keeps you, because that's, if it exists, then it's supposed to exist. And
yes. Now the role of the student, because there's so many options out there now, I always got this impression that like a student should be like under one master and like learn under their tutelage. But like with so many options right now, is it good or bad if a student is learning under multiple gurus, trying to take more of like a holistic approach?
Like a Renaissance student.
I think in the beginning it may be good to have that approach. I think in the beginning, because you want to see what guru clicks with you, essentially. You'll find the guru that will kind of be with you throughout. And then with that guru, then give your whole attention and your whole being to. But again, I would say gurus should be open to say where they're limited. And if they find another teacher that can guide the student further, they should be open to do that. And in India, that happens. They'll say, oh, I only know this much. Go to this person if you want.
That's so refreshing. I love that. I love the idea of somebody who could very easily pretend to know everything saying, I don't. So, I just find your whole attitude on honesty really refreshing, because it's, we kind of live in there's a lot of opportunities in the modern day to be deluded or deceived that not honesty is the way, right? And then you get way off the path. And one of the it's like, you want to be guru-like, just start being honest, and all of a sudden you'd be super guru-like. You know what I mean? If you're authentic with yourself, And I think sometimes gurus look around, or maybe that's not the right word, just spiritually advanced people, I'm trying to do quotation marks. Sometimes I think they look around and they go, listen, I just can't be bothered to do all the nonsense you guys are doing. Like, so much effort put into your vanity and your lies and all this stuff. Where do you get the energy? I just want to be honest and simplify, and then behold, spirituality starts to emerge.
And also, just to make a point, even seekers need to grow up a little in the sense of they can't expect a guru to be a certain way. I mean, that's also, when I say a certain way, their personality needs to be something. Obviously, if they're doing something bad and against the law, that's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, some people think, well, a guru should be soft-spoken.
Right.
They should speak really slow and be chanting Om all the time.
Right. It's
Those
cringy if it's put on. If it's real, it's dynamite. If it's a fake persona, that never works.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I was a little less frantic at times. Sometimes I gotta calm myself down, but because I think that there is a value in genuinely being calm. But like you said, if it's a magic show, if this is like an act you take on the road, how is that sustainable? Your real self's gonna confront that one day.
Yes.
You might be caught in some scandal.
Yeah, and it's not sustainable. One thing I've always said, that a guru always will stand the test of time, and you'll find that their behavior is consistent. You will not see a change in the true sense. But yeah, it's really up to. But again, I think it's up to the disciple. I think something Osho said. I think someone wanted to leave Satya Sai Baba, the Sai Baba with the afro. Wanted to leave him to go to Osho, and Osho said, "Don't come to me. I'm not going to allow you to take sannyas." And the reason is because you're a fake disciple. You're saying he's fake. He's a fake guru. He's probably the true one for you. And
you can't even spot me who's faking it.
And he said tomorrow you're going to say I'm fake.
Yeah.
Because you said he was fake.
Right.
So, and I think that was this was like, I think in the first Pune 1, the first stage of Osho's kind of when he was a guru. And I think that was a spot on answer. Like, how true are you as a disciple? How authentic am I? Am I truly willing to give my all to my guru's teachings? Not the persona of the guru. Again, a lot of people follow the persona. Oh, that guru makes me laugh. And?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ricky Gervais makes me laugh, but, I'm not going to accept him as my guru. You know what I mean? We have to be very real in that. So, yeah, it's, is that teaching really creating something within you to wake up, to become more aware, to become more of the observer, to bring up devotion in your life and bhakti and those things? Is it allowing you to see the divine in everyone, or are you still thinking you're holier than thou? Those are the things that a true relationship with the guru should create. And I can say that from my own life, that's what it did. It created that level of, you have to be authentic, otherwise why are you being a devotee for? Why do you claim to be a devotee? And I always say a good devotee will always make a good teacher in some sort of way, a good preacher or a good guru after or whatever.
Because you have to learn humility first too.
Yes.
And honestly, it sounds like kind of fun. Like, we're humans, we love connection, and that's a really beautiful connection. I got to imagine. I've never had a personal guru or something, but having somebody sort of to help you keep devoted, there's rich with potential good things there. Do you ever, in this journey, do you ever get like sort of the odd sense that there's something to get the hang of? Like you're especially in the earlier stages, I guess, where it's like you get a glimpse of something, and then you're sometimes, you ever had the feeling like that? Like there's something to be, not a handle on, but almost like a coming and going sort of awareness to things that is, I guess in a nutshell, the oscillation of your consciousness, like oscillating from I'm really unconscious today to I'm a little more conscious of what's going on here. Does that make any sense?
No, that does make sense. That does make sense in the sense of, in the beginning there is that that kind of oscillating feeling. Today I wasn't aware. and then you then have to catch yourself up. What is saying one wasn't aware? Yeah, you did then do that inquiry.
Yeah.
And what happens is, you know, the great thing about Advaita Vedanta is what people don't teach a lot or talk about a lot is you have to address your vasanas, your predispositions that you have, your habits, your the things you always fall back to. Like, for example, whether it makes you angry or the desires that pull you back again, those tendencies that one has. Those will occur and those will continue to occur. I don't think they ever stop. Even if they're latent, they're still there.
Even
You
if
know.
you're a master guru?
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
I think it can always arise. And that's unless you go to the where someone is a Jivan Mukta, then I would say, you know, liberated while alive, then I would say the completely enlightened one, yes. I think they've transcended, which is the true sense of being enlightened. But otherwise, working on the vasanas will always be there, or working on, and you know, the ego self is it can easily catch on. It can easily make spirituality into a new identity and a new label to hang on to. So with what I found with non-duality especially is, you know, you have to keep going back to awareness, and you have to keep going back to that understanding of what is aware of the mind, what is aware of the senses, what is aware of my thoughts, my emotions. And you have to keep going back to that awareness. Okay, a vasana or a tendency has arisen in me. Let me go back and be aware. Is that tendency actually doing me any good? Can I actually turn that into karma yoga and convert that energy into something more positive? You know, if I have, I always use this example, if I have that desire for a chocolate cake, well, you know, that slice of chocolate cake is going to give me joy, but probably years down the line, it's probably not going to. Or a whole cake is not going to do, a second slice is not going to be good.
And what's going on inside that I'm struggling so much with this chocolate cake issue? What do I got to let go of?
Yeah, what is it really going, looking into? So yeah, you know, we have to be on that really honest investigation, but at the same time, what I have found with Advaita, the way I've interpreted it, obviously people may have different ways, is a lot of people go towards the more formless emptiness aspect. But what I go with is, yes, there's a formless, but you know what? The formless is manifested everywhere. And I see everything as divine. I see everything as beautiful and sacred. So in that sense, when I talk about that, I'm talking about a really high level. I'm not, obviously, there's nuances when you go, you know, for example, if someone's doing something horrible, that's someone's doing something horrible. You can't see divinity in that. Then you have to kind of, in the transactional world, do something. But in reality, when you go back to awareness, I like to see that awareness, you know, pervading everything. And therefore, it allows me to transcend that ego self, that limited self, and resting in that kind of vast awareness is what it's all about.
What you're talking about is some really beautiful stuff, and I'm just trying to think of like your everyday average Joe. How do we kind of reconcile, you know, like the practical challenges of daily life, you know, with this philosophy and what you're talking about? And again, I'm speaking for me too, man. It's challenging, man.
Yes.
Like, I'll step out of here and I'll go back to work and I'll be back in the grind again, man.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's like, it's extremely challenging. What are some tools maybe that could help us, like, get us farther down the line a little quicker?
Yeah. No, very good question. And so one is very simply, you know, there's satsang, keeping the company of the true ones. So whether that's scriptures, guru, like-minded spiritual people, you know, talking to them, asking them questions, or just talking about the divine. No need to ask questions, just, you know, have a nice exploration of that a formless one together. You know, that is very important. Because what happens there, it just naturally gets deeper. Whatever you think about more, talk about more, naturally will start, being part of your daily life. Two is Karma Yoga, which is obviously serving others. Like, for example, I have a little boy, he's 6 months today. And,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. Cleaning his diapers, as I just did before this call, is totally, I can't get anything in return for that. And that's beautiful. I can just serve, um, serving my wife coffee every morning. That's, I'm not going to get anything back, but I'm seeing her as the divine and I'm serving the divine. And the same thing in everything, like at work even, see your manager as divine. And sometimes that can actually help the relationship sometimes, when you have conflict, which will happen. And just, when you go back and say, you know what, they're also an aspect of the divine. So I don't need to go too hard on this, or I don't have to be too negative about this. I should look for a solution, the right solution to do. Use my vivek in that sense, the discernment between what's best and what is not best. And then obviously meditation or mindfulness, just going, like I said, going back to awareness and resting in that. Now, someone may turn around and say, well, I'm at work, I'm looking at several spreadsheets. How am I going to think about awareness? You're not going to think about awareness. You're not going to think about divinity, but you can take a pause to think about divinity. You can take a minute to say, you know what, I'm just going to spend some time now and just pray or meditate, whatever one is comfortable doing. And I'm just going to do that, or I'm just going to read one page of the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads. It doesn't have to be something crazy. So just being mindfulness, having awareness, and just going back to it in your day-to-day life without... the main point is to go to a place without conflict. So there shouldn't be like there's me and the activities I do. There should be just this seamless oneness that occurs, that, okay, it's just the same one doing everything. And everyone is the same person just trying to do the best that they can in their in the reflection of that one pure consciousness. And I think we become more compassionate that way also, if we see everyone as an aspect of the divine. If there's hatred on any ground, if you look back, we're entertaining duality in some shape or form. So again, the honesty to investigate when we have those pitfalls.
I was just going to say that. I'm so glad you opened with the, specifying and going hard into the importance of honesty, because I think a lot of those situations, like speckled in what you said there, was surrounding yourself with the good types of things and having discernment. And I think that these are byproducts of the more honest you get. It's like the life starts to filter everything out, because I got to imagine there's somebody that's just frustrated and like, but I work in a mechanic's shop and everybody, first thing they do when I get in there is like throw a naked lady in front of my face and pass me a beer. And like, it's all unconscious. Like, what am I supposed to do? Not that I'm not saying anything against that. I'm just saying that I think if you're after the higher values and after having the time carved out to be able to return to awareness, one of the things that's going to be a huge assist with that is being honest, because things filter themselves out when you're honest. The people that are lost in samsara or whatever it is, they're going to not want to be around somebody that's aligning with the truth.
Yes, that is very true. Again, to get out of that kind of framework for that person is not easy.
It's scary. It takes some bravery even.
Yes. I mean, to be spiritual is to be courageous, for sure. Courageous in the sense of you have to acknowledge that you're not everything. Well, you essentially are everything at the end, but in the beginning, you have to accept that you're not everything.
So the component of trust seems to be maybe I'm identifying that wrong, but as you were talking, I was saying it seems like there's at least some element of trusting God. You know, like I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to do my devotion. I'm going to try to align myself with the truth and trust that as things unfold going forward, that it's towards the right thing. If you're going to be dual, if you're going to separate yourself from God, then you got to have some trust that they know what they're doing.
Yes, yes. And in fact, I found more peace in knowing that if you say everything happens according to nature or God, I think it also allows you to be, again, more broad-minded with other people, especially, again, like if you're that mechanic. It can, you know, if you, let me see how to word this. Basically, it just allows you to take away any limiting factor you put on somebody or how you view them.
Yeah.
You see their actions in a broader way that, okay, for example, that mechanic, he has no choice, but he is where he is.
I immediately regret using that as an example because I don't want to, I certainly not judging mechanics. It's an honorable career choice. But also, if you're keeping in mind the divinity and everything, I honestly think it could be helpful to like relinquish that tight egoic grip on life, is to go, if I'm seeing it, and then it's God ordained. Like if I'm encountering this, what is just the truth of what's going on here? You know, rather than judging it and trying to separate from it. And
you see, where the conflict will occur here is, without going too deep maybe into it, but the whole aspect of free will and God's will. You know, I hear many people say, oh, it's God's plan, but yet you're going to be damned for your choices that you make. Well, isn't that God's plan, the choices you make? Yeah, logically it makes no sense that you say this. So I'm more of everything is determined. You know, everything's more or less predetermined. There is the illusion of choice, obviously. You know, at the end of the day, if there's you know, a selection of ice cream in front of me, I know which one I'm going to go for, but I may pretend to think about which one I want, you know. Or I often say, like, to explain this point, I say you do have like a menu of choices to make according to the situation that you are in. All the decisions of your life have led you to this. Every decisions of others has also led you to this. The actions of others, your own actions, your own thoughts, their thoughts, all of this is interconnected.
yeah.
And therefore, so when I think it's more easy to say it's God's will, and when you do that, you know, when you bring it to the higher self, then you know what, you kind of accept things a bit easier. I think when you kind of say, oh, I'm burdened with my own choices, I think that opens the door for a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
And cruelty too. I don't think our justice system is kind of it caters for people properly in that sense. So yeah, I think, you know, that's my view on that. But yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Well, it even in some way, it helps you be humble again, and it helps you, what could I say? Like anything that I think leads you to the opposite of evil or arrogance or blindness or unconsciousness, you know, that's the diametric opposite. So if it's leading you towards consciousness and compassion and care for others, and if the way you get there is by looking at other people and, you know, having the ability to see the interconnectedness of things, you know, I like states change, and I have been in states where I feel like it's a lot clearer to me. Of course, it's all of exactly connected, meaning this should humble you, because say I have some sort of an awakening or an epiphany, then I go, yeah, but I didn't do anything. I just so happened to be born where I was, got the teachings I did. What can I do to be of service then? You know what I mean? And not in some pretentious, like, fake puffing yourself up in a delusion way. Like the real deal of all of a sudden realizing it's all working together. So, which kind of opens up a question I wrote down. I didn't even know if I was going to ask it. I kind of wrote it down as a bonus question. But given what you've said, What do you hope the ultimate is? Like, what do you hope God is up to in the end? If there is an end, or, if it's all just to get even to the present moment, could you articulate that at all? What your sort of hopes of where this is all going is?
Yes. See, the beautiful thing about Advaita Vedanta or non-duality, or most the spiritual traditions that believe in this, is the whole aspect of being free while you're alive, liberated while you're alive, Jivan Mukti. And to me, Jivan Mukti is the state of godliness, or what God is. And the hope is that, yes, what God is, I think, is neutral. I don't mean this as a cop-out answer, but no, I truly mean it's neutral. It's not even, you see, we use the word, it's not something that even observes you, because there's no you for it to observe, because it's all its own self. So the realization that should come in this limited form is that, actually, you know what, I can be completely neutral, and that is a state of true happiness. That's true freedom, because you know what, I don't have to go and entangle myself into viewing the worlds in pairs of opposites, and I can transcend both good and bad, and
Yeah.
good and evil, and hot and cold, criticism and praise, which is a big one as we're YouTubers. So those are so for me, that state of godliness is right here, just really present here. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to disappear or dissolve. It's let me just say, as clear as day can be, that state is. So my hope for what, and that's what the scriptures are saying as well, and what I have experienced in meditation somewhat. I wouldn't say I've got there yet, but at least I've had a nice little, what's it called? When you go to a store and it's a nice little sample I got.
Yeah. And you still get something to look forward to.
Yes.
The deeper things, it's like, yeah, if you're in the right place, you can even accept your not there-ness yet. And you're like, I can even sort of revel in my ignorance to some degree. Like, I think that's what I just said might be a little hard for people to chew on, but there's something to it, like there's something to this idea of getting a glimpse of God, in the sense of understanding that it's okay, even that you're not there.
Well, I was kind of wondering that through maybe this type of self-realization, yes, it can produce an outstanding being of selflessness, but can it produce the opposite? Could it produce someone who's wildly selfishness? And is it possible that there might be players in this reality that are using maybe some of this philosophy in a negative aspect, and that's why we see so much corruption in the world?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty evident. I don't think we have to go far. If someone wants to search up on YouTube, and you can see those people that I would say have had some level of realization, for sure. I don't want to kind of knock if they've had any experience or not, but say, if I give the benefit of doubt and say they have, I think
I've heard the term Zen devil before.
that's
kind
an
of
interesting one.
I don't know,
But
is it
it's
something like that kind of.
It's kind of weird though, because on the way here, sometimes I rant to myself to try out how it would sound later, and so I'll try to piece it together. I was thinking, imagine somebody that's really in hell. You know what I mean? Things are bad and they're struggling around, and all of this is just, makes them freak out. The truth. They're lost in it. They only see all three of us as pretentious and full of it and after something. And I was thinking, if only you could reach into that person and try to communicate to them, try to understand that this is on purpose and it's okay. If you could communicate that, but it's almost like being engaged and possessed by the hell that's influenced you. And it's almost like being in the hell is the thing that makes you just not be able to be in the positive, you know, in the awareness. You're unconscious. So what you need to do is be conscious. And so it's hard for me to even imagine an effective Zen devil, because you'd have to be unconscious. And when you're unconscious, you're lost in samsara or whatever, and you're egoic as hell. So it's like, how would you even get a Zen devil? How would you get somebody that's become aware that they are everything else? It'd be like stabbing yourself with a pin or something.
But
like,
maybe it's just an idea that they're missing one piece of the puzzle that's causing the quirk.
Yes.
Like you could say, like maybe they get very solipsistic, and it's like, well, it's all me anyway, so I'm just gonna do whatever the heck I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just gonna, you know, whatever.
But that seems like a not true awakening to me. You know what I mean? Like I see what you're saying, but
Well, they missed that thing.
it's an identification still, though. It's like an identity that you're assuming. I'm solipsistic, so it's all me, and so it's not a relinquishing of the identity.
I don't know.
Am I making sense?
No, you're making sense. I know it's reminding me of I think it's Adyashanti that's talked about. I think there's a book. If I'm not wrong, it's a book. He spoke about how like a lot of people have awakenings. I think I alluded to this in the beginning. Like people have some sort of awakening, but they think it's enlightenment. So they think they've reached the highest. So they just actually stop growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people, as they're going up the ladder, there's even a book about this. I just read the title and I thought it was interesting. It's halfway up the mountain. You know, they're just going halfway up the mountain, but they thought they've reached the peak.
Yet another escape latch to remember to be humble again.
Yeah,
It's like almost like you always could be deluded. You always could be. So, you know, but that's important. It's almost like I've been trying to think of humility as a gift, because, you know, back at my house, my daughter and my wife really hate when I get arrogant, even if I'm kidding around about it. Like if I say something bombastic, they always got to cut me down to size. And I've been seriously trying to think about it. Like, what is so bad about arrogance? You know, like, and trying to identify what that is. And it seems like a big part of what it is shrouded in, like what goes around arrogance or inside of it, is insecurity and fear. You know, you would not be that way if you were positive, everything you were taken care of and God was in control and you knew better. There'd be no reason to be braggadocious or arrogant.
Yes.
And so that's maybe the repulsion from others when it comes to that. It's not sincere or something.
You know, it's also, to bring it on a practical level, these people then, when they become teachers, they do two things. One, they add like an honorific title to their name. You know, even although they may not have gone through some lineage, you know, they've just suddenly they become the world teacher, you know, and nobody knows how they got to that title, but they've named themselves that, you know. I see it all the time, especially today. And then you have, on the other side, you then have people around you that are yes men or women, yes people. And what happens there is you're never getting checked. You can go wild and people will, because they think you're holy and you are their teacher at the end of the day, they're not going to see your behavior as bad until, you know, again, they come out of that situation and then look back and say, you know, what was that?
And that goes along with what you said too, actually, because that you could imagine somebody that's maybe more conscious than a group of people who are even further unconscious, following this guy that's slightly more conscious, but nevertheless, he's given himself titles and, you know, thinking all kinds of stuff. But again, like, I want to be careful not to judge somebody that gives themselves a title, because maybe there's a reason every now and then to be like, from now on, I'll be this.
It makes you more believable.
Yeah, it's good for business, man. Like, stop questioning whether or not I'm actually this gentle.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is good for business. Yeah.
You do a lot of teachings and stuff from the Bhagavad Gita, and we can't have you on here without talking a bit about this because we're learning. Well, I don't know. We just did a 3-part series on it. The last one will be airing this week. But from the Bhagavad Gita, because you've studied it so much, I was curious. Maybe you could pick like one teaching from the Bhagavad Gita that has been like the most influential for you, that has helped you in your journey.
Yes, that's a good one. And it's actually, you don't have to go too far into the Bhagavad Gita. It's literally in the second chapter, the Sankhya Yoga chapter. And really, it's that just teaching of what is real and what is unreal. What is unreal is that which is changing all the time or modifying. There's some sort of change that happens to something. And if there's some sort of change, that is ultimately unreal. But what is changeless? And the Bhagavad Gita tells you that's the ultimate reality. That's the Purusha. That's Brahman. And the second chapter, once you can then discern between the real and the unreal continuously, that builds up vivek, the discernment aspect. When you build up the discernment, then you are able to see reality a lot clearer than you would normally previously. And with that becomes a mind that is more steady. And again, like I said, it's clear, steady, and naturally you can't really get ego from it. That's the other thing, because if you get arrogant or you kind of think, oh yeah, I know it, but something's just changed from unknowing to knowing.
Yeah.
So it just really brings that home for me. And obviously when he explains the Purusha, it's unmanifest, so it doesn't have a form. And I can go with that. It's nirguna, it has no attributes. And yeah, that is the ultimate teaching for me. I think it's defined the way I view spirituality today, that one teaching. And obviously that means that what is real is the one thing to be devoted to and have loving devotion towards. I find devotion to be a very important part in spirituality. And obviously the Bhagavad Gita is very big on it. Although today I think some people try to stay away from devotion in the Advaita Vedanta circles. They like to be more intellect focused and more chasing the knowledge. But actually the devotional aspect is so beautiful as well. Like, oh yeah, I want to be devoted to the path of knowing what is real and being aware of the real and becoming the real, in my day-to-day life. That's what I want to be devoted to. So yeah, and because of that, it takes you out of the other one in chapter, I think it's in chapter 2 as well, is the whole fact that when, although this will be another teaching, but it's brilliant.
Well, that's fine.
Is when Sri Krishna says to Arjun, well, all these people are dead anyway. So it doesn't matter. They've already been killed, so you're not doing anything. And again, that takes one away from being the doer. That then means that one can transcend karma, which is the whole point of spiritual, which is one of the biggest points of being spiritual, is to be beyond action. Therefore, the fruits of those actions will not come to you, positive or negative. Yeah. So both of them. People like to say, oh yeah, I don't accept the negative, but actually don't accept the positive either. Don't identify with it.
Yeah.
So those are the few teachings from the Gita that I really like.
Yeah, they're wonderful, and you've articulated everything to do with this so well. Like just the importance of not disregarding devotion and stuff like that, and that there's important stuff in there. You've articulated it and argued for it well, or spoken for it well. And one of the things that just kind of came to mind when you were speaking about it, and it's like it's not the changing thing. That's what's not real, is what's changing. So what's real then? And my brain was like, nothing. Nothing's not changing. And so is that the answer? But that's a thing again, so that can't be the answer. Right?
Well, see, if we go down to the nothing aspect, then we're going towards what the Buddhists called shunya, the void. You know, and that's somewhat true. But again, yes, that shunya, that void, it actually has no content. Like, for example, what you're trying to describe is there is no content in the changeless.
Yeah.
There's no form, there's no image, there's no color.
No
Yeah,
quality.
nothing. No quality. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be taken away from it. And I guess that can also open the door for one feeling like, oh, there's nothing to life. Then, that can open it. But it does the opposite for me, in the sense of it makes me realize, well, actually, if everything is this no-thingness, this contentless consciousness, at least we're all alive temporarily.
This
and
is a
able to
miracle
enjoy
then.
it.
Yeah.
And this changing phenomena is there for us to enjoy. So there's no need for me to totally become monk-like with it. I can actually enjoy it and understand that the real aspect of me and everything else is changeless.
Just relinquish the expectation. You know, if you're like, okay, if it's, instead of becoming nihilistic, I go, wow, it all comes from nothing. It is nothing. It's like nothing. But nevertheless, this strong illusion of everything, all I got to do is relinquish control over it and my grasp on it. And now it is beautiful.
Yes.
Or my expectation of how it should play out or something.
Yes, and what I will say, what Advaita Vedanta does, and non-duality, and real spirituality takes us back to Sat Chit Ananda, which I'm sure you've heard of. Sat meaning existence, Chit consciousness, and Ananda bliss. So what happens is once you realize this true self, and you have that self-realization, and you understand that, yes, you're formless awareness, you're formless consciousness, you are infinite and eternal and everything else. But then you see this in existence too. So you see that all around you. So you see divinity in everything. And then at the same time, because of that, you rest in peacefulness, in blissfulness. So, you know, what happens there is that nothingness is no longer nothingness in that sense. It has meaning. And the meaning is just...
And meaning
peaceful.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Rich with meaning in every fiber and stick.
Yes.
Now, where does the rubber meet the... Let's get down to brass tacks here. Because one of the things about everything we just discussed is I like that you can do it sober. I like that all that can be kind of thought of and contemplated without external things. So I wanted to talk about... Because every now... It's one thing to discuss the philosophical nature and sort of get in touch with that and get some peace from those, you know, realizations and everything like that. But every now and then I'll encounter somebody that has, you know, played with their consciousness, you know, through outside means, like psychedelics is what I'm talking about. And they will come back and be like, "Oh, you got no idea, man. You know, sometimes they'll disappear. They'll leave because they're so gone now and they realize they're God." And where is this? And I got a question, you know, like to a normal sane person, you like can't help but think, did they have a breakdown or are they onto something? You know, what do you think of that sort of thing? You know, what do you think of? Well, you didn't got it yet until your answer is, I know there's a God and that I know everything about that, or you know, I've met with God literally or something.
Yes. So one, when it comes to these external substances that induce an awakening-like or enlightenment-like feeling or experience, one, they're good gateways, but they're not the be-all and end-all. For that, you have to be sober, frankly. You know, yes, you use those things to kickstart the engine towards spiritual enlightenment. But at the end of the day, the real fuel is spiritual practice while you're sober. I have met many people and I've seen many people who go down this path of spirituality, and then, you know, they be speaking on YouTube claiming the highest heavens, and then tomorrow,
arrogant about it. Like, you're all cringy for even trying to understand this. I understand this long time. Like, literally that type of attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you'll find, the channel's closed down. In fact, one person, she used to claim such non-dual experiences. I did a reaction video to her, and she emailed me asking for me to put that down. I was like, well, what happened to your, there's no one here experience? Obviously, there is someone here then. I said, maybe, and I'm trying to warn people about people like you, who are, you know,
Yeah.
as you meet people like that, and a lot of people, a few friends who, let's say they're spiritually minded, but because they become reliant on the substance, they go down depression, anxiety, panic attacks because of that constant use of drugs. So I do believe one has to be sober. There is no other way. But like I said, I have complete compassion and I will not say to someone not to do. If one person, by taking a psychedelic, comes onto the spiritual path genuinely, then I have no problem with that.
Well, also, no one's sober.
Yeah, that's true. That's
you know what I
true.
mean? Like, it's like, all I mean is that even if you don't have a severe problem or something, or you're not taking shrooms every week, like, you probably, a lot of people drink coffee, or they're on their phone, they're playing with their own brain chemistry.
Yes.
And so there's that humbler, that great humbler again, is like, dang, I can't get it. I can't get a hold of it. And so got to just let go again. Go return to let go and be the eternal student.
Yes.
I got another brain buster here for you. I don't know. Okay, so again, we react to lots of different faiths out there and stuff like that. And I'm curious, is there a possibility, is there a way for people in other religions using other spiritual texts and stuff like that to come to the understandings of, say, like the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads, or just figure out Advaita Vedanta through their method by accident, or by, like, is it possible?
Yeah.
It depends. For example, in the Bible, I think Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is within, or something along those lines. Now that's a completely non-dual message.
Yeah.
But is the interpretation that the preacher's giving on that line, in fact, they probably will avoid that line more than explore it. But, they won't talk about it. So yes, in every tradition, there is that non-dual aspect, whether that's in the Quran as well, or in the Torah.
Yeah.
But what I will say is they are the East and the West. Obviously, they're considered Western religions, but they obviously were sprung up in the Middle East. They are two different philosophies of how to get to the truth. Two different paths altogether. And why I found him, if you just look at the numbers, there must be something going right with the East, in the sense of how many people have ended up going to self-realization or God realization. There must be something.
Yeah.
But again, someone can make the argument for the Western religions too.
Yeah.
But I find there are two different paths, and it's best not to say, yes, believe that they're all one, like inherently, like just have respect and honor for each tradition. But to try and say they're all saying the same thing, I would say we have to be a bit careful. In the East, we say karma and reincarnation. In the West, it's somewhat karma, but and then
Judge not lest ye be judged.
Yeah,
but I think a
moral
big
teachings.
part of that thing is because I feel like I have encountered the odd person that's sort of like a Christian mystic. They're cornering some pretty great epiphanies and stuff like that.
Yes.
I think it's a cultural thing too. It's that it's a different stream, because I don't know if I heard a term about, like, there's 84 streams and they all lead to the same river, or they all lead to the same ocean or something like that. But I think it's a cultural thing too. It's that, you know, maybe people have a tendency to just get a little more legalistic, or just inject some capitalism into the religion itself, so that it gets, because one of the things I used to do is would go to things where there were Christians and be like, what about the part where he says the kingdom's within you? What about the part where he says you shouldn't, you know, build up treasures on earth? What about the... And that was just shut down. You know what I mean? Like, people just oftentimes, they want to go to the sermon and hear the preacher that's wearing a nice suit and going to tell them how they can fill their bank account. It's like, this is not even spirituality anymore. You know, it is, because some of it's about how to be happy and how to be grateful to God. But it's, when, like you said, the numbers are different when it comes to people that are actually, like, become so awake that they're not capitalist anymore, or whatever, you know. Not to say anything bad against it. I'm just trying to articulate what, you know, piggyback off what you were saying.
I think I read somewhere recently that at a church, the preacher, I think it was a joke maybe, that the preacher was talking about the Sermon on the Mount, and the congregation left and said, "What is this lefty nonsense that the..."
Yeah.
I think I've heard that myself.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But it's somewhat true. But look, people are leaving the church. Even I've heard, I mean, at one time Islam was one of the fastest growing religions. I think that's heavily slowed down. Well, I see a lot more ex-Muslims out there than I used to. For sure. It used to be a rare phenomenon. Now you go on YouTube, there's a growing number. And there's a reason why a lot of these people are leaving. I think there's a whole book on this as well, on why people are leaving the church. But without going into criticizing them and that, I just think at the end, people are looking for the results. And until you can give them a path that can give them a real result, they are not going to just go by faith alone. You cannot guarantee me something after death. I need to experience something now. I need to, and you know, I'm not talking about some miracles or healing stuff, something more deeper than that. And I think that's why Hinduism, Buddhism has really grown in the West now. You know,
there's a part of me there's a part of me that feels like going to somebody if they, you know, I thought you were saying that the numbers are growing of Muslims. I would have believed that too, but but there's a part of me that wants to say to somebody, whatever they are, Muslim, Catholic, whatever, like, you can find what you're after through that, and I think you acknowledge that.
Yes.
Too.
I mean, there's Meister Eckhart, right? There's Rumi, there's Hafiz. There's so many examples.
Yeah.
But again, they're kind of, there really are cases of exception.
Yeah.
You know, they're not the
I've
rule.
read some, like, spiritual gurus say that, like, after you kind of, like, figure this out, go back and be whatever you are in your culture. Go be that in there.
Yes.
And,
Wow.
like, and which I found super fascinating. I don't know if you guys want to continue on. Yeah, see what you're going to say?
Just said because they can then interpret the real teachings that are there.
Yeah.
So there's a purpose for them to go back. And yeah, religion shouldn't look to convert you. It should be there to enhance what you're currently studying. Or if you find, obviously, the other path to be more viable for you and you vibe with it a bit more, that's different. But yeah,
that's what I said about the Bible. I was like, I've cherished the Bible more now that I decided I didn't, you know, like in the process of being like, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. And then returning to it after exploring the Eastern mystical stuff, it's like, this is mystical, you know, and full of non-dual teachings. Yes. But at the same time, is it fair to say that there's a little bit of a balancing act too? Like, let's say, for instance, the West's been hyper-materialistic, hyper-earthly, even transforming somehow religion into a materialist pursuit. And the East has been steady, that selfless awakening approach. Is it safe to say that the West is now raising their consciousness but the East is now pursuing more medical, technological, like financial pursuits to like raise them up to where the West even is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like there is a shift that's happened. Definitely, if I look at India, you'll find the ones with the bigger gatherings are those that can guarantee you that they can make you rich or healthy or more educated.
Yeah.
And they will have more followers. They'll have grounds filled with swarming with devotees. And the little ashram that's teaching the absolute reality is,
How did that happen? Like, how did it? Because one of the questions before we did this was I was wanting to ask, like, is there room for personal development in this? But it's I don't even like the question, because it's like one of the things that might dawn on you in this pursuit is that personal development is somewhat bull crap, and that you don't want that stuff that whoever's pitching you that book is trying to sell you.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah, there's only so much Tony Robbins or Jay Shetty or those people that they can provide.
So you can fret about wanting stuff you don't yet have, so that you don't feel complete all the time?
Yes, and spirituality is about understanding that you don't need anything to be fulfilled. But yeah, it's happening in India. I mean, it's rather sad, in my opinion, because they have the best teachings that one can ask for. Assuming that everyone is kind of knowledgeable of Sanskrit, yet they have no real value. They it'd be easier to believe the person that can write down your parents' name and he has some clairvoyant powers and that's more important, or someone who can give you a mantra to become rich, or do they call them parts, havans, these massive prayer meets so one can become rich or get rid of their personal issues.
It causes so much egoic pain, and it's almost like, okay, I could make you rich, but what if I could make you never care about being rich again? And they're like, their identity is going to be like repulsed by that. What the, you stinky lazy hippie? I don't want to be anything like that. It's like, you don't get it. Your desire to be this other thing, like, I never want to be one of those flakes, that flakes out and is detached from everything. That's what's making you suffer. You could solve it, but you want to be identified with
something. Just ask people, like, how would you like to live in a world without money? Watch them be like, well, no.
Yeah, depends on who you ask.
Yeah. That's true.
Like,
that's true.
It's crazy, man. It's like,
that's true. See, these approaches that they have is the whole carrot and stick. So literally in my own life, I had the choice. At one time my parents went to a guru that would say, do these mantras and you become rich or whatever, and or stick with the path that I had. And I stuck with the path that I had. I said, at the end of the day, the path that I have tells me that there is the formless, and you know what? It also tells me there's bliss at the end of it, and that I'll never get rid of desire. So all these mantras, if I go on this path that my parents end up changing to, obviously they left that path eventually, but I said, when's my desire going to end? How much richness am I going to get to till I say it's enough? How much can you guarantee that I will not have any problems in my life? Otherwise, what's the point of this? So I want to get to a point where I can transcend problems, desires. I'm not saying they don't come into my life, but I know how to deal with them instead of...
It's just amazing how much gets revealed from unplugging. It's like you are in the Matrix, you're walking around, but it dawned on me at one point that like my entire character, my entire identity is made out of like, what's up, loser? What's going on? Just like constant bombardment from the world being like, what's with the frowny face? Like, come on, we're all get involved, get competitive, get involved with all of it. And then you realize that it's nothing but torment being like that. And then when you get a chance, it's like one of the things I often think is people could use a chance in our modern, workaday world, a lot of people could just use a chance to stop. Just stop and get in touch with what's there. And they think that it's, well, I do. I have a 30-minute meditation on Wednesdays. Right after I hit the gym, I force myself to sit still. It's like, that's not what I mean. I mean, sit still long enough to see what's really going on with your addictions and see what's really going on with your entire character you think you are. Because it's all a facade.
We severely lack that getting away, which is hilarious because like people want to be like Jesus. The Christians in the West, they want to be like Jesus. I always say, well, what was the first thing he did? He spent 40 days and nights in the desert. Have you done anything like that? What did the apostles do after Jesus left? They spent 7 days in an upper room, doing nothing. But
so many guys. Buddha did something similar. So
all
did
of
Muhammad.
them go off but we have none of that here. Where it's like because there's so much pressure. It's just like gotta get the bills, gotta pay this. Like people can't even afford, and it's like they get 2 weeks a year, and they're like, well, if I only get 2 weeks, then I'm going to Florida,
or I'm going to a Vipassana, and I better get enlightened.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's such a backwards approach.
No, that's true. That's so true. Yeah. No,
I wish some of those retreats would be like, do not think you're going to get enlightened here. So sometimes they'll be like, you got to do this. This is how this will break you through. It's like, before they go, tell them to not expect that at all. Just stop being so frantic and unconscious. That's it.
It's capitalism that's ingrained into the spiritual institutions today. Yeah. I mean, we can't run away from that. I mean, it's happened. And it's not bad in a way if there's some good being done. Like, for example, there's a lot of the spiritual institutions that do a lot of good work in India. Like, they got hospitals, schools, and all sorts. There's so many good things that they do. Obviously, they don't do that so much here in the West. I'm talking about the Eastern schools. But yeah, I mean, if the problem, going back to the main issue, is like you can't unplug yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, even if you ask for 2 weeks, it's like they look at you as if you've asked, if you've done the worst crime in the world.
I was in traffic one time and I was like having some epiphanies, like at work in traffic, and I was like, oh, I gotta write this down. And it's right away, like you're pushed through life so much. And by the way, I don't want to harp necessarily on capitalism, and I certainly don't want to harp on people that are keeping the lights on. Or be like, oh, good for these normies to go do all this stuff. I don't even mean that. Like, I think that the wisest person will recognize, like, you can probably find spirituality anywhere, even on a battlefield, like the Bhagavad Gita, there's no excuses here. It's not like you can turn, I gotta get away and unplug, into its own thing that's a foothold too.
Yes.
It's just really, it just seems, the illusion is that it's so hard to get at the truth, but it's just stop believing all the lies. It's not, you don't have to get to the truth. You just got to not actively engage in the deceptions, which is a tough thing to communicate sometimes.
Yeah. If only, there was a time, I don't know if you felt that, there was a time maybe like 10 years ago where I felt like we were going down that route where corporations were starting to question, like, are we really... do people I think do need to unplug. Yeah, we need to do more mindfulness and all this. But although there's been more on wellness today in corporates, but it's not getting rid of the mental health problems that are still popping up.
Because potentially it's because that capitalistic mentality is still comes in, like, okay, well, we've identified something, here's the characteristics of it, it's a real disorder, and this is what happens. There's such a overemphasis on appropriately labeling and controlling and having the right language to identify and separate and all this stuff, which I want to be careful not to say it's wrong. Like, I think that we need doctors and we need psychiatrists and all of it. It's just it lacks the ability to sort of see beyond it or something. It's like, if you can't see all of that for what it is, you'll be sort of lost in it. I wish I was better at sort of not being vague.
I think you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
in terms of your channel, for the people that come to your channel and they're watching it, what is the main overall arching message that you want to like relay through the bearded mystic?
Yeah, good. This it's very simple. Is we're a community that's looking to learn. Obviously, I may be the face of it, but really, it's a community where we all learn together. We sometimes meditate together, but essentially, it's I want people to get a good foundation of spirituality, if anything, just a good foundation. Then later on, if they go to a guru, they go to any teacher, at least they can be decent students. If I can create people like that from my channel, I would say my job is done. That's all I want. And and also to have a more open approach and to be respectful of other traditions. And I mean, I do reaction videos and I'm critical, and I am, and I will criticize, and but at the end of the day, there's always something good you can get from those traditions too. Like I'll be very honest, like on my channel, there's been quite a few videos where I've criticized the Hare Krishnas. But I will tell you now, I don't think there's any group that can do kirtan or chant like they do. Hands down. Like, I think they're brilliant at what they do in terms of chanting. Yeah, but philosophically, I disagree with them completely. It's two different, their duality and I'm non-duality. But I would like people to still see the positive in different traditions as well. So, that's what I end up wanting. And I think we've created that. But also, be able to use our discernment, see the bad faith actors out there. I mean, we were talking about one specific guru in our WhatsApp group today. I mean, just raising the fact that, again, when capitalism comes into that and how bad it can, how it pollutes everything. So the channel is about I guess it's about keeping it real. And keeping it, keeping it real, keeping it honest, and if you want something further, I'm not saying that what I give on the channel isn't everything that one can have. It surely does provide that, but I think it should open the room for others to kind of say, you know what, they need a teacher. Because I'm not a teacher, I'm not a guru, I'm just a friend on the path, and therefore they should go. But I'm trying to find, actually, just being very honest with you, I'm trying to find a way where I can make this my day job, so to speak. So
we hear you.
What's coming down the pipeline is creating a course which will give them a good foundation in spirituality, and through that create a community, and without the trappings of the guru or anything like that.
I think that sounds awesome. I mean, you said so many wise things. And in terms of one of the things I've had to come to terms with is all this is recorded, and there's earlier versions of this that are hyper cringy. I regret, But one of the things I loved Osho saying is I'm gonna contradict myself.
Yes.
It's how are you supposed to? Are we gonna speak or are we not gonna speak? We can sit in silence, but if we're gonna speak, there's gonna be a learning curve, and we may change how we thought later on. But I can tell that the essence of what you're saying is has a lot of potential to be helpful. It was just so well said. Everything that you said. And so it's been fun for me. I hope the viewers like this.
Yeah,
because this was a lot of fun.
Rahul, I want to thank you for coming on the show and keeping it real.
Thank you.
And maybe to close out, you could let our audience know exactly where to find you, what you got going on, and anything like that.
Yes. So right now you can go on my website, which is thebeardedmysticpodcast.com. I'm on social media, but I tend not to use it as much. But you can find me on YouTube, The Bearded Mystic Podcast. Right now I'm on Patreon, but again, I'm going to be going off that. So So obviously things are changing in the channel. That we're going through a nice little reevaluation, and just to go on to what you said, I've said this before, that in 5 years' time I may say something totally opposite, but that's the whole point of learning. And again, with the podcast, 2-3 years down the line, I've had to reevaluate everything. So you can find me on social media. I have a WhatsApp community group, and we share all sorts there. I used to do meditation sessions every week, but with the newborn, it's been quite difficult. So I've had to go back on that and do it on the odd occasions. But yeah, otherwise, if anyone does ask me a question, like on social media, I will always answer. And I'll find the time to at least answer any email or any question that somebody has, because at the end of the day, I don't know what they're going through, and I have to, if they take the time to message me, I should, as long as I've now had the time and capacity, I should.
That's amazing.
If we become Joe Rogans in the future, then maybe we have to redo that.
Yeah, just so everyone's clear, I'm not anti-capitalist. I still like money. But like, honestly, just to say a little something about that, it's like, even when I say capitalism, I don't always just mean the money side of it. It's like it's a whole mentality of I'm going to get in there and I'm going to talk the loudest. I'm going to dominate everybody because I'm consumed with a misguided sort of egoic selfishness is what I mean by that. I don't mean the system even.
Yeah.
But anyway.
My guru once said, and this, I think it was a comment towards capitalism. This was like when I was around 17, 18. So it was a good 20 years ago, good 19, 20 years ago. He said that even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. So
there you go.
I think that woke me up in the sense of, it doesn't matter how much you get successful, you're still going to be the same egoic, individualistic person. So
That's a good saying.
yeah.
We'll leave it on that note.
I could definitely. I feel like I could talk forever. I really enjoyed this. So,
thank you so much, Rahul, for being on the show. This was fantastic. Until we meet again.
yeah.
God bless. Take care. Thanks. It was awesome, man. Bye bye.